Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels for me like it has fallen out of the time.
And I knew that I wanted this windscreen. This also floats down a road. That's a very interesting point. Perhaps it's timeless. This is not an expensive car to buy. So this car ironically forces care.
I was looking at new products and kind of came to me that it seems to me that we replaced beauty with trends and therefore kind of sanitized our world a little bit, like, yeah, by removing beauty from our everyday life. And what I mean with this is basically, I think beauty for me is something which is timeless, something I find beautiful, I always will find beautiful. And the things we see nowadays, like products, might it be a car or a watch, and specifically fashion, is only beautiful today or won't be beautiful tomorrow because it was replaced by some other marketing campaign telling me this is the new hot bit, right? I felt like it shouldn't be like this, right? I mean, for example, like the Napoleone espresso machine, I haven't bought yet, but I want to buy like for, I don't know, possibly like the last 4 years or something like this. It's basically not only because it obviously makes great coffee, but also it's so really, really nice. It's so beautiful. It's just a piece of art being sitting on your kitchen counter, and it doesn't only serve the one purpose of making great coffee, it also pleases me. And beauty makes me happy, surrounding myself with beauty. And my question to you is basically, would you agree with me when I say, like, we replaced a lot of our everyday products from being beautiful, and maybe they never were, but even if, we made it just following a trend, basically?
I think so, yes. Because, in my opinion, we forced beauty to be in a correlation to wealth.
Huh.
Because historically seen, you know that as well, that wealthy men and women had always castles and big paintings and everything. It was very expensive. Everybody knows that. And I think nowadays we force it even harder. And it's harder to get things affordably for being beautiful. Because like you said with your coffee machine, I think, like, I love beauty as well and aesthetics. And I think if we nowadays want something beautiful being in our everyday life, we have to pay a lot of money. Is it forced by producers? Or does it even have to be so expensive?
Well, I mean, for me, it seems like corporations are for once using this correlation for them, because we always thought of beauty as something being maybe only for the rich or for the wealthy. But the other thing is also like, the connection is being sold to us nevertheless in every single sense of the perspective I have right now. So especially for cars, like, as big and as aggressive a car looks, or as more aggressive it looks, the more expensive it gets, right? Like, if we talk about one of the most expensive cars on this world, like a Rolls-Royce, they are all enormous, right? They really shout at you, I am here, this is my space, right? And even though I would agree to some extent that some of the Rolls-Royce cars are very beautiful, I don't agree per se that all Rolls-Royces are beautiful, and I actually think that the old Rolls-Royces, for example, have been way more beautiful than the modern ones. The modern ones seem to follow the trend of shouting at you, I am here, I have money, I am, that it kind of feels aggressive to me, And I don't think this has to be like this. And to go back to your point of the connection historically, yeah, of course, I agree that it was always there. But back in the days, it also made sense to me, at least, right? Since labor was something expensive and also the materials were way more scarce. An intricate wooden table had to be more expensive than a very simple one. And this is also still true today to some extent. However, through modern production technologies and intelligent design choices, I think you can make it way more affordable than it is right now. And yeah, I think we should just try to integrate more beauty in our everyday life, since it is something making us happy and make us enjoy ourselves in this world a little bit more.
So you're saying that producers would be able to like have us pay less and have more beautiful things in our life, in our everyday life.
Yeah.
Like you told me with Robin Waltz, like he is producing a handmade car, and even an affordable handmade car.
Exactly.
So maybe we should have an opinion of him. So how did he do it? And why is not everybody else doing it?
I like that idea. Yeah, maybe I should reach out to him and see if he would be interested to sit down with the two of us and just talk about how he did it and how he designed the car and why it actually ended up being affordable.
Yeah, and maybe what about his thoughts about beauty and aesthetics, and why he did the car, he produced the car like he did, and not in another way.
Yeah, seems like a good idea.
Yeah? Awesome.
So,
Put your feet there, head up, and then you just slide down. Yeah. And then coming out, you use your arms to push up. 20,000 miles in the last few months. It's just hard driving.
man, you can really tell that this is mechanical. You can actually hear it.
Yes.
It's crazy, man.
Yes. This is so beautiful.
Don't take care too much. And especially the curves in the front.
Everything is curved.
Amazing,
Everything
yeah.
is curved.
Man, this is just crazily cool. yeah. Which is crazy, yeah. Just crazy.
It's everyday, but also a little bit different.
Yeah.
And that's the paradox that we're trying to bridge.
Yeah.
Something which is unique, but accessible. Something which is glamorous, but actually has very basic components. Yeah? So there's a lot of paradoxes inside the car.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels to me like it has fallen out of the time.
Yeah.
Right? It very much looks like a 60s sports car, but not the ones actually being sold, but the ones driving at Le Mans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about design, because I think that's a really good point to get into. Okay. So one of the common questions that I get asked about the design is, did you consciously want to make something retro?
Yeah.
Like the new Mini or the new Fiat Cinquecento, which is a conscious recreation of the past. And the answer to that question is no, I didn't consciously want to make something that looked retro, because I think that's a design and almost a philosophical dead end if you're trying to just recreate the past. It doesn't work. But the car looks retro because I wanted to make something beautiful.
Yeah, and I get this.
And ironically or sadly, it seems that cars from the past are more beautiful than cars from the present.
Yeah.
And they are.
And they are.
Definitely, yeah.
So I mean, that's in itself, it's a really interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Let's talk big picture about that, and we'll go into detail. I think cars in the past had curves and had proportions. And those were the two conscious design motifs that I wanted to create in Vertige. Curves and proportions. And I think if you look at, we'll talk about aesthetics later, but those are the two fundamental ingredients into what creates an emotional response in humans. Curves, for me, is simple, because if you look at nature, there's no straight line in nature. Nature is the starting point for all of our perception and understanding of beauty. It all comes from nature. So I deliberately created a car with curves, and I can talk about that now if you like.
Yes, of course.
Just go ahead.
So this car was not designed using a pencil or a pen, because I don't know how to draw. And any car that I've tried to draw just looks like a 5-year-old's, school drawing.
And this is a result. Yeah.
Like stick figures.
Yeah, it's like stick figure car. Okay. And similarly, if I tried to design this on a computer, it would end up looking like a car that's been designed on a computer. Okay. Which is, I think, ironically, we'll come back to your point about modern cars. That's part of the problem. So if I didn't draw it and I didn't do it on a computer, how did we create this shape? Well, the answer is, I had an idea in my head of roughly how big it should be and where everything should go together. So what did I do? I bought 4 wheels. I knew that I wanted this size wheel, 17-inch. And I knew that I wanted this windscreen. This is from a Lotus Elise. And I'm deliberately using an existing windscreen because it's an expensive thing if you try and design and create your own. So what I did was I bought the 4 wheels. I rented a warehouse. I bought 4 wheels. And I purchased an old windscreen. And I created a little metal frame. And I basically put the 4 wheels in this warehouse, you can imagine.
Yeah.
And with a metal frame, a windscreen in the middle. And then I manually sculpted it like you would create a sculpture. So I effectively took, with a colleague, we took bits of like plaster or clay and just threw it on our frame.
Okay.
And over a period of 2 years, this shape emerged. Like, say, Michelangelo creating David, with a block of marble, and then you just chip away until the shape appears. That's effectively what we did here, that we would put a bit of material and then manually with our hands sculpt that and create this shape. And particularly this part here, which is the rear.
Yeah.
It's rather like the rear of a cat or a leopard or something. You've got this beautiful shape here, a little bit more width coming in.
Yeah. I agree.
Like this.
That's curve
beautiful.
Like that.
It's beautiful.
It's actually really interesting.
That's not something that would be designed on a computer. It can only really be done by the human hand. So it's very tactile, and it creates an emotional response.
Yeah, okay. But this puts like handcrafted in another perspective.
Exactly. It literally is handcrafted because it was done by hand. It was myself and my colleague just doing this over a period of time, and one of us would put some material on and then go and look and say, yes, bit more, bit less, and so on. And after 2 years, we then had the basic shape of how it looked. And the beauty of doing it also in real size is that you get a sense of the physical effect it has. Instead of making a little model, which you don't really know the space it's going to take. This is a physical, tangible object. So doing it real size, I could walk around it and see the volumes and imagine it on the road, feel it. Yeah. So going back to our discussion about beauty or retro, the first part was curves. And you can see this is a very curvy car.
Yeah.
And what I've tried to do, as you know, my background is in music. I studied classical musician. I trained as a classical musician. I did conducting and so on. Is I've used a musical technique, which is motifs, leitmotif, Beethoven. And so if you look at something like Beethoven's Fifth, for example, he has a very simple motif, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and creates an entire symphony using that simple motif.
Yeah.
He inverts it, he plays around, da-da-da-da-da-da. We have a similar thing here. So the motif, as it were, is this elliptical shape, that, which I've replicated here. So we have this and that. And then here it's presented forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Here it's kind of inverted going down there.
Wow.
Here we have it also.
Perfect.
So you can see that by the repeated use of leitmotifs, there exactly.
So,
unconsciously, that's what makes the car seem have integrity. I'm consciously using the golden ratio, Fibonacci series. Okay, you'll be familiar with that. You'll be familiar with how Pythagoras, or Leonardo da Vinci, we're using it in some of his artworks. So if we're looking at the relationship between the bottom of the car to here, this to that, we're using elements of the golden section there in those proportions. The placement of that relative to this line, relative to that, again, logically, if you're choosing where to put that, you'll put it in the middle. But the middle doesn't look right.
Exactly.
You get a sense of speed by bringing it just a little bit closer this way. Yeah. So in the design and the relationship of all the different elements, we were consciously using proportion to make it work and make it look beautiful. Going to your point about the placement of the driver and the view, and bearing in mind that fundamentally a car is a tool for driving, so you've got to start with the driver. It may look beautiful, but if it doesn't work as a tool, then it's useless.
Exactly.
When we got to the point of engineering the car, which is different from designing the bodywork and so on, we did it all in CAD. Okay, and CAD is computer software. Okay. So the first thing that we did was take a computer image of what's called a 95th percentile human. So that's 95% of the population. So let's assume it's a man or woman who's about 5'9" or 10. That's average. And we took that human on the computer and put him or her, whatever, effectively in a seat. And then we did all the visibility lines based around what he or she could see. Okay. So, for example, we made very sure that with that person on the computer, they could see really close to the front of the car. So we measured it and it's like 3 meters, which is world beating. That they could also see from the driver's seat or even the passenger seat, the highest point is here, which is directly above the center of the wheel.
Perfect.
So from driving the car, you know exactly where the front wheels are. We designed at the back of the car this tiny little lip here, which is deliberately the rearmost point of the car. And we made that lip so that looking through the mirror, you can see that, so you can see the rearmost point of the car.
That's perfect,
As a result, you don't need reversing cameras or those little beep, beep, beep things because we've designed that into the car.
That's
outstanding.
And
right.
Yeah.
It saves complexity, it saves expense. So what we've tried to do here is intelligent design. Yeah?
Yeah.
Making something cheaper, more beautiful, more cost effective, all these good things just by designing it at the base properly instead of making something and then trying to fix the problems later.
Yeah.
Yep.
I get it.
And I think it was the architect Le Corbusier who said that good design is intelligence made visible.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and think about that, intelligence made visible, that's what we're trying to do here by designing it with thought and care. Which brings me on to an interesting engineering point, because you would have seen earlier that the doors open like this.
Yeah.
Now, there's a reason why, bearing in mind this is unfinished, this car, but there are many benefits for that. Okay, I wanted to have a solid, safe car, which means that the chassis, we'll talk about the chassis structure in a minute, but you can see there that these side box sections are really, really solid and thick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that gives us good side impact protection, but it also means that the chassis as a whole is tremendously strong.
Yeah.
And with a strong structure, you can have soft suspension. So the car floats. You talked about the Alpine, for example, which is also really nice. This also floats down a road. It doesn't have too much, like the modern Porsches, which are quite hard.
Yeah. So you feel the road better.
So you feel the
than
road
a big
better.
SUV.
Exactly. Even though you're floating up and down it, but the car's really holding the road.
Yeah.
It's also very lightweight.
It's a very lightweight car as well.
Very stable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have these very thick side structures, but if we had a conventional door with a conventional roof height, it would be almost impossible to get in and out.
Yeah.
That's why we scalloped out. So we cut out this hole, rather like the racing cars of the 1960s earlier, which then means that getting in and out is super easy. You just step over and slide down.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So for that reason, that forced us to make these dihedral doors. We didn't make these for the design or for the visual looks. It's more a practical solution to allow all these good engineering things. But the beauty of these doors, one of the kind of unintended knock-on benefits, is that you can park your car so much closer to any other car or wall because they don't take up so much space. If you can imagine this was a conventional door, it would be out there.
Yeah, exactly,
It's actually only 4 centimeters, even less when we compare it to where the mirror would normally be. It's actually just that much more. The rear perspex screen, which you can see through, this is a teardrop shape. From nature is aerodynamically the most efficient.
It is,
So again, the car was designed to cut through the air quite cleanly. That allows it to go faster, but also for less fuel. So it's a more efficient car.
I get it.
Yeah.
Also, it's very interesting that you have fuel intakes on both sides, right?
Yeah, I get.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
It's left and right.
Okay.
Okay.
And again, that is it's a visual thing because it looks beautiful, it looks balanced, but also it's very practical.
Exactly.
So that you can pull up to the petrol station pump and you don't have to think. And they both feed into a central fuel tank. So either side feeds into a central tank down there in the middle of the car, which is the safest place.
So behind the seats, right?
It's effectively down here behind the seats.
Yeah.
Okay.
The safest place because if there's an impact to the front or the rear, nothing's going to touch the fuel tank down there.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah. I deliberately wanted to design something that's not aggressive.
And it's not,
Yeah.
It's
Many
very
reasons
fun.
for that. I think already, talking philosophically, there's enough aggression in the world.
I agree.
Yeah, there's no point adding to that aggression by having a car that's just shouting at you. Yeah, so I don't like that idea. Practically speaking, having a beautiful, non-threatening car is actually a really pleasant experience driving the road because people will let you in and they will wave at you, and just generally it's nicer.
And that's also interesting, right? Like the car, the outside of the car, the bodywork will change the perception on people, how they treat you.
Yes.
And how they actually see you, right?
Yeah.
They kind of assume a character.
Yeah.
And it's a very important thing because we actually have, to some point, identification happening when we buy a car.
Yes.
At least for people who are not buying a car only to get groceries.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very interesting point, because then we can say that the car is just like changing our behavior, and the behavior just from other people seeing the car and seeing you in the car.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. I wanted to add a little beauty to the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And bring a little bit of pleasure. When somebody sees that,
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Oh, that's nice, thank you. Yeah, I like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's also not forget that it's 50% of the world's population are women.
Yeah.
And so I've created a car that appeals to women as much as to men.
Yeah.
It's not shouting aggression, look at me, I'm a middle manager at some big company.
I agree.
It's something that's prioritizing beauty and, to a certain degree, femininity, curves, and so on. Yeah. And again, from the customer feedback that we're getting, women like the car.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Which is really great. Actually, we have been talking about this yesterday evening after we went to the British Motor Museum. I kind of pointed out that that's a difference in car design nowadays. Nowadays, they want to have the front looking like an angry human face, an aggressive human face.
Yeah.
And back in the days, like 50s, 60s, you always look at smiley face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this has also a smiley face.
Yes. Yeah,
Right?
100%.
Yeah. Smiling at
And that's already changing us. And we cannot stop seeing these patterns.
Yeah.
Right? As humans, we are like
we
programmed to
we
see.
do. We project human, I think anthropomorphism, I think is the English word.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, you're quite right. So we've got big eyes here deliberately. It's big eyes as opposed to, anger, which you see on many of the BMWs or other cars where they're prioritizing aggression. Aesthetics, which is effectively the study of or the valuing of beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I consciously wanted to make a beautiful car. But let's dig into that and why.
Yeah.
Why did I want to make something beautiful? Why did I not just make something which was okay but drove fantastically well? Why did I prioritize beauty? I think there are a number of reasons for me. Commercially, and bearing in mind that this is a business and I want to sell a product, people respond to beauty more.
Yeah.
People will pay more for beauty.
Yeah.
People will look after something that's beautiful. You look at artworks, art as a store of value, for example, which is an interesting point now when we're seeing inflation and the destruction of currency globally. Art is a store of value, precisely.
Exactly.
Beauty has a commercial value as well as an aesthetic value. It allows me, if I wanted to charge more, or at least to be sure that I can sell the product.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that I'm a startup, and no one's heard of us. We needed to make something visually appealing.
Yeah.
But I think also for me as the creator, to design something beautiful and to make something beautiful is also a moral decision that you're somehow adding to humanity.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Putting something beautiful into the world is like just, adding value to it. Because I mean, what do we have in life generally is like, for me, I'm a hedonist.
Yeah.
I call myself a hedonist.
Yeah.
And I don't think of it as a negative thing.
Yes.
We are here to experience pleasure. Why focus on the bad stuff, right?
Yes.
Just try to create every moment as a beautiful experience, as an aesthetic experience as well, right?
Yes.
So I perfectly agree with this. And I would say it adds value. And also, I want to point out something Kant says about beauty.
Yeah.
And this was also part of our discussion yesterday evening.
Yeah.
Which was a little bit interesting because Kant says we often confuse beauty with goodness and agreeableness.
Okay.
that it actually is in line with what we want it to be, right?
Yes.
And he says beauty is actually a state of mind where you cannot quite figure out how an object or an image fits into these values you actually already have. And it's different for me because this car fits very well into my values, right?
Yes.
I would actually design it if I could. I cannot, and if I could, I would design it very similarly. At least that's my impression. But I think, and that is what Korab pointed out earlier, right? That it might not be true for a lot of other people, right? They might see this car and cannot really figure out, and that might happen for us as well. We already said it's like retro looking, and it's not. It's a modern car.
Yeah.
So we have the state of mind, right? We cannot figure out how it fits into the modern world.
Yeah.
It does not. And that's what makes it beautiful, maybe, right?
If it doesn't fit into the modern world, perhaps it's timeless.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a characteristic of beauty.
True.
Yeah.
Beautiful things.
Yeah.
It is.
That they exist outside of a specific time or era. They have enduring value or enduring appeal. And again, going back to the idea of particularly proportions, proportions are a key part of enduring value.
That's true.
Appeal. Yeah.
I think the general human in this world is like, they want a practical car, and they then change their like assumption of beauty to the car which is just like, it's very practical. I can use it every day. And I say, okay, this car is like more beautiful than this car, so I choose this car.
Yeah.
So they do not choose a car based on if they like it a lot or if it's the most beautiful for them, but the most practical. Then they change the decision of which one of the cars is the most beautiful one.
Yes.
In this case.
Yes.
So that's what I got by talking to the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It follows. Yeah. You kind of make a rational for yourself, right?
Yeah. A post hoc rationalization.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I understand that. Beauty and the kinesthetic experience of driving it comes first.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, this whole idea of exclusivity, value, and beauty, because as we were saying earlier, historically, beauty has been the preserve of the very wealthy.
Yeah, that's true.
Or only certain sectors of society could have or own or access beauty. What I've tried to do here is democratize beauty. From a cost perspective, this is not an expensive car to buy.
Sure.
You looked at it and you said, oh, that might be out of my league. Wait, but actually it's not when you look at the car.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. Yeah.
So I deliberately designed something which is beautiful, and we've engineered it in a way that it's low cost to buy and low cost to maintain. So if the exclusivity is not because of money, how is it exclusive? And the answer is because we're only making 25 a year.
Yeah.
And customers need to find it.
Actually, it kind of feels a little bit like you would be buying a piece of art.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it is.
Yeah. That's actually really interesting. And because already, since you mentioned how you designed the car with sculpting it with your hands, it actually adds to my perception of it as a piece of art. Right? Which is really interesting.
And it was wonderful telling us the ovals and to see everything I personally did not see at first sight.
Oh, there's lots more. Very good. I mean, every single part of the car has been thought about, designed intentionally.
Yeah.
And that's a key thing.
Yeah.
That we've had long discussions late into the night. Where should that switch go? We move it there or there.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah. And that's also something, right? Knowing about the process, knowing about the techniques, the principles, how you actually can achieve an aesthetic impression, right? Changes your perception of it as well. So talking with someone who has no idea about the golden card, Fibonacci and stuff like this, they might can tell you, oh, that's a beautiful car, but they cannot explain why. And knowing all these things actually changes it, and you can maybe appreciate it even more.
If we use the art analogy, you can buy a beautiful painting and you can put it on the wall and you can look at it.
Yeah.
You can't drive it.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the extra depth, the extra dimension of something like this. Not only is it beautiful as a thing to look at,
True.
but it's sensational to drive.
Yeah.
So there is thought in the kinesthetic experience.
Yeah.
And I'll talk briefly about that. I mean, it's less philosophical from an aesthetic perspective, but it is philosophical in terms of sensation and meaning.
Yeah.
So let's start with the idea. If you want to make a car fun to drive, what are the ingredients
Yeah.
that go into that mix? You tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it should feel like, maybe you want to go ahead, Korab?
Yeah, I was
Sure.
like just thinking about every sense the human has.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Seeing, feeling,
Yeah.
like touching, very good
Smelling.
materials. Yeah.
I mean, the
Leather.
leather.
And
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
smelling,
Yeah.
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 That's all senses combined
Yeah.
and telling you that every sense has a very big value added to your assumption of beauty in this case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it makes you even feel more beautiful because you have it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, you
nice.
can use it every day. And
Yes,
like we mentioned,
exactly.
you mentioned before the painting,
Yes.
there are maybe some days where you don't see the painting or you don't pay attention to the painting.
Yeah.
And here in this case, you just watch out of the window and you can see it.
You can see it.
So it's an every day, you can't deny it. You see it every day and you appreciate it every day. And I think for me personally, this would never get boring.
I mean, like Confucius said, right? The journey is part of the experience, right? And this is actually something I like about driving a car. I actually do it very consciously. I actually enjoy driving.
Yep.
And that is maybe a prerequisite to buying a car like this, right?
Okay.
If you do not like driving at
Yeah.
least, then why you wouldn't probably be looking into nicer cars. You just get something, I don't know.
You made a really interesting point there, the idea of conscious activity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's a philosopher, but I don't know who it is, who would have talked about, maybe it's a Buddhist philosophy, but the idea of mindfulness, of being conscious,
Yeah.
engaged in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Flow is a modern concept. Okay, so this car absolutely encourages, in fact, it demands conscious involvement.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to drive it. It will not drive itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will not do anything for you. You have to drive it. And for maybe 90% of people, that's a turn off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm okay with that. But for the 5 or 10% people who enjoy driving,
Yeah.
who want to participate in a conscious activity for the pleasure of purely that activity,
Yeah.
this is sensational.
Yeah.
And the analogy that I like to use is you can sit down and listen to a piece of music, radio or Spotify or whatever, or you can sit down and play a piano.
Yeah.
This is the piano. It demands an element of skill.
Yeah.
You have to know how to operate a manual gear. You know have to, brake properly and change gear properly and all these basic things. But that involvement actually brings greater enjoyment.
Yeah, it does.
Definitely.
I agree.
Yeah, because you're not disengaged. You're actually engaged, at which point the driving of the car becomes in itself a philosophical activity, a form of meditation.
That's a good thing. Actually, that's what I think about driving. And often I sit down in my car at night if I cannot sleep
Yeah, go for a drive.
and go for a drive
Yeah.
because it actually calms me down.
Yeah.
Because I have something to do, right?
Yeah.
To focus me on.
Yeah.
But it's not like very demanding of you.
Yeah, you're right. So you're engaging a different part of your brain. So we have deliberately set up Vertige so that whatever response you want, whatever input you make, you get the equivalent output or response.
Yeah.
And that's for some drivers, maybe that's not a good thing,
Yeah.
because some drivers perhaps might be lazy or make a mistake. But for the ones who are conscious, we go back to this idea of conscious driving and competence, then that's perfect. So let's use your example of the accelerator. So the accelerator response is very simple, because you push down that little lever, the pedal, and there is a cable which connects directly to the throttle and the engine. So the more you push it down, the more response you get. It's very simple. There isn't a computer in the middle deciding, oh, is that safe or not? Or should we really go now? Does he really want to do that? No, it's just a direct response. And more importantly, the steering, which I think is where you feel the essence of a car. You know, steering is all of it. It's completely linear. So a lot of modern cars, you'll find, because they've got power steering, you know, they're very geared to straight ahead, and you've got a little bit of inertia, a little bit of effort you've got to move to kind of pulling away from that straight ahead.
Yeah, true.
Which is safe if you're driving down autobahns. You want it to be programmed to 150 kilometers an hour straight. There's no interference whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's purely linear. So you move, and the wheels, the front wheels will move directly in proportion to your input, which is exactly how you want a sports car to feel.
Yes.
Again, I go back to the piano analogy.
Yeah.
You know, it will be loud or soft according to how hard you hit the keyboard.
True.
It was really important to me that we had a deep boot. We'll take some photographs of a finished car later.
So it fits
and a
the
wide
golf
boot.
bag.
Yeah, so I can get, well, what I wanted was 2 cabin bags, you know, the type of trolley bags of wheels that, you know, you travel, because I travel a lot, and I wanted to make sure that I could have 2 and luggage in the center. But if we had our exhaust silencer in the conventional space, we couldn't have got such a deep boot. So I had the idea, well, why don't we put the exhaust silencer here? Then that frees up the space. And then what that allows us to do, on the finished car, you will see that this is all perspex, so you can see through it.
Yeah.
And this part is visible from the outside. So it looks quite beautiful.
Yeah.
But from an exhaust noise point of view, it's also given a slightly unexpected benefit. What's happened is that the exhaust comes out here.
Yeah.
And instead of going to its normal place, which would just be a straight line, we've had to wrap it round the bottom, go round and out, and effectively made a longer exhaust than normal. And you'll know from music, like a musical instrument like a trombone, if you make the tube longer, the note gets lower.
Yeah, right.
So we've actually got quite a deep sounding
That's wonderful.
exhaust.
It's really interesting.
Isn't that fantastic? So we've got a small engine. It's a 4-cylinder, 2-liter engine, but it actually sounds like a V6 or a V8 with quite a deep
Wow.
like that.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, some things just play out, right?
Yeah, that just played out really nicely. Yeah.
That's really, really impressive.
There's another example I can give you of something playing out, unintentional, you know, karma, as it were. It was very important, we talked earlier about designing the car around the driver. So he or she can see everything perfectly.
Yeah.
The steering wheel is in perfectly straight ahead and pedals are perfectly straight ahead. Too many cars are flawed like this in that the pedals are slightly offset, and that's not good.
Yeah.
You know, because after 2 or 3 hours, you start to have an ache in your hips.
Yeah.
So we designed this car on the CAD, on the computer, so everything was bang straight ahead. As a result, we have our floor wells and our pedals perfect proportion. However, when we started building this car, P2, which you'll notice is left-hand drive, we designed this for European markets. We also thought, let's build air conditioning into the car, okay? Because we thought that some customers would like AC as an option. The only place we could put the air conditioning unit was down there in the bottom of the floor well in the front bonnet.
Okay.
And that had the unexpected, unfortunate consequence of making a little bit coming into the footwell, which I really didn't want, but there was no other way to do it.
Okay.
Ironically, the positive is that actually what it's done is that it makes now a perfect ledge where you can rest your left foot like a footrest.
Okay. Yeah,
So we have, again, without paying the expense or the complexity of engineering a footrest, by design, we've actually got the perfect little ledge for your foot in the right place.
one thing I just wanted to mention, like aesthetics or aesthetic impressions is actually a term used in philosophy as well, right?
Yep.
So that describes that you get a sensual reaction from something.
Yeah.
So, and actually, it doesn't mean it should be good or bad, right? That's open for you. So, I mean, there's also the aesthetic of the disgustful,
Yes.
right? But that's actually exactly what I mean. And just seeing this car like coming together, seeing it in real life is just a beautiful experience. And I really want to sit down and just put my hands on it, right? And this is a very strong feeling, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of always love the way how we approach cars and how especially sports cars.
Yep.
Because the velocity is one thing we actually manufactured as humankind. We as humans by ourselves can already experience it. Only way would be falling and presumably falling to death.
Yes.
So us building cars and planes and stuff like this is
It's
actually
the only way to achieve that velocity
Yeah.
of looking at a bird in the sky or something. Yes.
Yeah, right. Just being fast moving is a very exhilarating thing, right? It's obviously a risk taken as well, which also adds to the experience, right?
Yeah.
And that's also something I would say why we are doing this. And having still cars manufactured only for this purpose, I would say, for the experiences, forces and stuff like this, is just something I really hope that it doesn't end.
It's a really interesting point, and it feeds into a wider philosophical discussion about the value of risk, or to use another word, danger, in our lives.
Yeah.
And the question is, have we sanitized our lives too much?
Yeah.
I think
By
so, yeah.
removing that element of danger or thrill. And again, it was a conscious decision, and I hope this doesn't come back to haunt me, but it was a conscious decision to create a car without those safety controls.
Yeah.
Because involvement, attention, conscious driving can only exist if there is that slight spectre or ghost of danger hanging above you. Because otherwise, why not? Why pay attention?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
So this car ironically forces care more than the modern Tesla or vehicle, which does everything for you.
Yeah, sure.
So on that basis, I could argue that this is actually a safer car.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Because the most unsafe element of any car is the human behind the wheel.
Exactly.
And if he or she is not engaged, that's the most dangerous car on the road.
And it was so amazing that we did this, that we actually met with Robin. I really loved it. It's, what I want to see is more people generally on this planet doing the same thing like he did. What I mean by that is like creating a small company, focusing on their passion, making their dreams a reality, basically. I mean, possibly not everybody will agree with me that this is the most beautiful car right now on the market, and nobody has to, obviously. But I hope, at least after watching this, that everybody can agree that this is a product of passion, a statement to beauty, and just in such an intricate process he has gone through to come to this product, and also the dedication multiple years of designing the car in his basement, putting clay on it. It's a story which is, for me, even the story is beauty for me, and that adds to the beauty the car has. And now, after hearing all of this, I actually have really to think about if I should get one, you know.
That was, definitely an outstanding experience, because he was just a wow person.
Yeah.
Just so passionate, and he told us everything about the assembling stations, and he told us every step, and just like the passions, and he did like the car did this and that, and wow, we definitely need more people like him.
I agree.
Like giving so much beauty to this world, and being so passionate, and being so intelligent, and like talking about beautiful car, assembling it like handcrafted, talking about music and nature, Fibonacci, golden cut, and everything. It was an outstanding experience.
Yeah, and he made it very clear that he thought a lot about all of it. You know? It's not, it wasn't created by chance. It was a deliberate choice of his to make this car, to make this a reality, and he had a clear vision of what he wanted. And for me, it's just amazing and very inspiring. And I mean, unfortunately, we cannot share everything we actually were able to talk about with him, but I hope we could start the discussion about what is beauty, what means aesthetics, and how can we integrate it maybe in our everyday life. And I just thought we should probably aim to meet more people like him, you know, like we should look out for people on this planet doing the same thing like he does, like following their passion, following their dreams, creating something outstanding. And I actually think that the current zeitgeist allows for this, you know. A lot of people are creating like handmade things. Like I know a lot of people who are creating, for example, knives, manually, right? Artisanal knives. There's a lot of appreciation going on for these kind of things on the planet right now. And let's hunt them down, and especially let's find the people who also make it affordable for everyone, because I think everybody should have a piece of beauty in his life and something he can aspire to, or maybe even get inspired to create his own.
That's true. I'm definitely into it, and we definitely have to meet a lot of people like sharing the same beauty and the same passion. And even like I've written about a company doing or assembling chess games, like in general board games, or like backgammon.
Yeah.
And maybe we can have a little talk to them.
I'm definitely delighted, and I'm really grateful for this journey so far.
Yeah,
really grateful.
Me as well. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you as well for accompanying me.
Welcome, man.
Perfect.